for our program. For our first song for our praise and worship tonight will be There Is Power in the Blood.
Would you be free from your burden of sin? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would your evil victory win? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you be free from your passion and pride? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Come for the cleansing to Calvary's tide. There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you be whiter, much whiter than snow? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Sin stains are lost in its life-giving flow. There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you do service for Jesus, your King? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you live daily as praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb.
Just as we might need our spouses or our future spouses, we need God just as much. So let's sing, Lord, I Need You.
Lord, I come, I confess, bowing here, I find my rest. Without you, I fall apart. You're the one that guides my heart. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. Every hour I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. With sin runs deep, your grace is warm, your grace is found, is where you are, and where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me, and where you are, Lord, I am free. Holiness is Christ in me. Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. righteousness. Oh God, how I need you. My one defense, my righteousness. Oh God, how I need you.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Campion Church. Happy Sabbath. It's good to have you here, and it is exciting to see that there are so many of you who are interested in investing and building a healthy marriage. One of the greatest joys or privileges, I believe, as a pastor is investing in others. And speaking of investing in others, just a few years ago, it hasn't been very long that I've been out of the seminary, the speakers tonight, both Drs. David and Beverly Sedlacek, invested in my life. And of course, I'm sure I'm not the only one here that they've invested in, but they played an integral role in my life in a very important time where I was in a valley of decision, in a relationship. And it's amazing how God had used them and did use them and continues to use them with our young people at Andrews University and then, of course, all around the world. Now, I want to give a little bit of a background of our brother and sister David and Beverly. David is a professor, or the professor of family life and discipleship at the Seventh-day Adventist Theological Seminary at Andrews University. Now, he received his master's and his doctorate in social work. So he has got a little bit more experience in this than I do, and so we're going to learn a lot of really cool things about marriage tonight. He has practiced both in the public and private sectors of family life and counseling as a clinician, a researcher, a teacher, a pastor, and an administrator. He has worked extensively in the areas of addiction, abuse, relationships, marriage, and family. And then, of course, moving on to his better half, Beverly. She is a therapist in a private practice at the University of Medical Specialties in Berrien Springs, Michigan. She earned her master's in science degree, specializing in psychiatric nursing from the Francis Payne Bolton School of Nursing at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, and a doctorate in nursing practice from Andrews University. What's really cool is that this is not just something they do at Andrews University. Both David and Beverly have written several books, and we're going to see a couple of those books here in a moment. But one of the things that's cool about this is they don't just serve at Andrews University. Their ministry takes them all over the country and all around the world. And God has called them specifically to serve in the area of family life, and especially in marriage. And so tonight, as we have all come out here to learn more from them, I believe we all have something to learn. Now, I'm sure that there are a few of you who have been married longer than I. Tomorrow marks 5 months that I have been married. So I'm sure that all of you, pretty much anyone here who is married, I'm pretty confident have been married longer than Shyla and I. But we are here because we believe that investing in marriage is one of the most important investments we can make in our lives, because investing in your marriage doesn't just affect your marriage, it affects your family. And I believe a healthy family invests or impacts our community. And I believe that when we have a healthy family unit, we are able to share the love of Jesus with our communities in ways that we would not be able to do otherwise. So you're going to want to take notes tonight. I believe it's going to be a great blessing to you. If you have children, I just want to make a note that we do have childcare available in the fellowship hall this evening. Miss Kelby Eichman will be leading that. If you have any questions, you can see me or go to the fellowship hall to sign your kids in there. So that's taken care of for each session. Did you guys get a Connect card when you came in? If you got a Connect card, raise that high. Did you guys get the Connect card? Great. You're going to want, this is not something you want to just throw away or drop and lose, because there's some cool things that come along with this Connect card. Each evening, we will be, at the end of the evening, we will have you fill this out, and then you'll be turning in the Connect card to one of the ushers, and this Connect card will go towards your attendance here. Now, here's the thing. If you attend all 4 sessions, you're going to be entered into a drawing for a $500 gift card giveaway that can go towards really whatever you want, but we would like to see you use it for a weekend getaway for you and your honey. So you want to fill those out, the Connect card. The next thing is this. If you have pre-registered either on Facebook or on the Google survey, you will want to stick around to the end. You will not want to leave until we have a drawing at the end of our session tonight, because we're giving away the books. And if Shiloh, if you want to bring those up to me, I want to show you what we're giving away. Thank you, honey. So we have two books here. We have the first book here, which is Cleansing the Sanctuary of the Heart by David and Beverly Sedlacek. And this is an incredible book that I had the privilege of going through during my time in the seminary. But not only do you get the main book, you get a workbook as well. So if you have pre-registered, you want to stick around till the end to have the opportunity to win one of these books. Now, some of you are saying, well, what if I didn't pre-register? It's not too late to pre-register for the remaining sessions. So you'll want to do that tonight or tomorrow. Pre-register for the remaining sessions, and you'll have the opportunity to win these books. Now, here's the thing. Some of you are saying, well, what if I don't win these books? You will have the opportunity to purchase these books tomorrow afternoon at 4:45 or tomorrow evening at 4:45. But some of you are saying, well, listen, I want to start taking notes and using the book now. We're going to have a sign-up sheet in the back at the end where you can sign up for the book set. If you want the book, you can take that book now, and then tomorrow at 4:45, you'll have the opportunity to pay for the book set. The book set is $25 if you buy both, and it's $15 each if you buy them separately. So we are just delighted to have you here this evening. I believe God is going to bless. We are excited that you're coming here to invest in your marriage, and we believe that as you invest in your marriage, your marriage will come alive, and it will be more fruitful than it ever was before. And we believe that will impact your witness and ministry to the world. Thank you.
For our last song this evening, we will be singing Come Alive.
Let's stand together.
Through the eyes of man it seems there's so much we have lost. As we look down the road where all the prodigals have walked, and one by one the enemy has whispered lies and led them off as slaves. But we know that you are God, yours is the victory. We know there is more to come that we may not yet see. So with the faith you've given us, we step into the valley unafraid. We call out to dry bones, come alive, come alive. We call out to dead hearts, come alive, come alive. Up out of the ashes, let us see an army rise. We call out to dry bones, come alive. God of endless mercy, God of unrelenting love, rescue every daughter, bring us back the wayward sons. And by your Spirit breathe upon us, show the world that you alone can save. You alone can save. As we call out to dry bones, come alive, come alive. We call out to dead hearts, come alive, come alive. Up out of the ashes, let us see an army rise. We call out to dry bones, come alive. So breathe, O breath of God, now breathe, O breath of God. Breathe, O breath of God, now breathe. Breathe, O breath of God, now breathe. breath of God now breathe. So we call out to dry bones, come alive, come alive. We call out to dead hearts, come alive, come alive. About all the ashes, let us see an army rise. We call out to dry bones, come alive. We call out to dry bones, come alive, come alive. We call out to dead hearts, come alive, come alive. About all the ashes, let us see an army rise. We call out to dry bones, come alive. We call out to dry bones, come alive.
Wow, look at all of you. Woo. First of all, I want to thank our young people for leading out in their music ministry tonight. Isn't that wonderful? Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. You know, among other things, at Andrews, I'm the director of the master's degree in youth and young adult ministry, and we value and treasure young people. I mean, don't you think that young people should learn about relationships and marriage and stuff right now? I mean, this is the best time for them to learn, and I just appreciate your ministry and your presence here. And one of the things that I'm real passionate about, by the way, this is just a little commercial, Michael, is growing young Adventists and that wonderful movement going on in the church to make our congregations multi-generational, intergenerational, and attractive to our young people. So I want to begin this evening by asking us about what do we bring into our marriages. And we want to make this, Beverly and I want to make this interactive tonight. So, you know, we just don't have these two people up here talking at you. You know, we really want to engage you in this conversation. So we're going to do that. But I want you to think about, for your own marriage, relationships, whatever state you're in, when you think about relationships, what do you bring into it? Here's why that's important. I want to go to Hebrews chapter 12, and I want to take a look at verse 15. Watch out, Paul says, that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. Now, what are our roots of bitterness? What are our roots of bitterness? What do we bring into marriages that can be roots of bitterness? Well, okay. Any trauma that you've experienced? Any abuse that you've experienced? Any neglect you've experienced? Hurts or pains? You know, as well as the good things, by the way. You bring those into your marriage too. But this talks about roots of bitterness. And roots grow down deep into the soil of our hearts. And many times, if those roots have not been plucked out, you know, you bring them with you into the relationships that you're in. And here's what it says. It says they do two things. One, they cause you problems. They trouble you. Okay? They cause issues for you like addiction or you know, just different, you know, mental, you know, conditions or whatever as well. So they cause us personal problems. But not only that, but when I get into a relationship, it says that these roots of bitterness defile other people too. They defile your spouse. They defile your children. They defile even your friends. In fact, I want to go so far as to say that we bring into the Campion SDA Church our families. And this church family can only be as healthy as the families that make it up. Does that make sense? And so building healthy families is a very, very important thing so that this church can be a safe place, that it can be a healthy place, and that many people would be drawn by Jesus Christ to come to be a part of this church family. So we want to begin by talking about the cycle of dysfunction. You're familiar with Deuteronomy chapter 5. Let me just read that real quickly to us. Deuteronomy chapter 5. And I want to start in verse 8 and 9. It says this, "But you must not make for yourself an idol of any kind or an image of anything in the heavens or on earth or in the sea. You must not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God who will not tolerate your affection for any other gods. I will visit the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation." Now, we want to try to tonight explain how that happens. How does that get passed along from one generation to another? So that's the focus, what we bring into our relationships tonight.
Good evening. We're going to start by talking about boy meets girl. What qualities do you look for, or did you look for, those of you who are married? What qualities do you look for? What qualities are you looking for, those of you who are single, in a relationship? What do you value, or what did you value when you began your courtship, those of you who are married? And I'm going to write while you call out.
Yep. So you guys, this is your turn to talk now. What did you look for? What do you value in a relationship? Now, qualities, adjectives. What did you like? Friendship. Very good. Honesty. Availability. What dude was, he was here, right? Not overseas or something like that? Okay, good. He's available. Intelligence. Okay. There was one over here. Good financial management, brother says. Okay, I mean, that's good. Is she a good money manager? Okay, good. You go, girl. Reliability. Okay. Spiritual. I'm sorry? Appearance. Brother says she has to look attractive. I mean, yeah, you got to wake up in bed next to her, right, if you get married? Eventually. Well, when you get married now. When you get married. What else? There was something over here? I'm sorry. Someone who's a Christian? A dedicated Christian. You have to forgive me. I got my hearing aids in, and they don't always work real good, you feel me? So, okay. So what else would you put on your list? Adventurer? A mountain climber? All right. Yeah. All right, good. What else? What else would you value or treasure in a relationship? How they treat their parents. Oh, okay, that's important. Because they're probably going to treat you that way too. Is that what you're trying to say? I got you. Okay. What else? Anything else you'd want to put on your list? Healthy. Someone who's healthy. Okay. Someone who's kind and compassionate. Very good. Very good. All right. This is a pretty good list. I mean, I love it. This is great. Great. So, would you want those qualities to go both directions? Yes. You want that mutuality, right? Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so
what happens next? This couple has all these ideal qualities in this relationship. They get married, and from that relationship, children are born. And this is pretty important. One thing I would like to say is that it really is important, as we describe this process to you, that you stay in the room. What do I mean by that? I mean that instead of thinking about, oh, what happened? What did I do with my children? Or what about my parents? I want you to think about your own experience. And so when we begin to describe the experience of children, I want you to think about your experience as a child, what you did or did not get in terms of your love needs being met. And so these children are born in this relationship, and all children have love needs. And these love needs The Bible says that God is love. Is that right? And so in order for us to experience God, we have to have some way of knowing who he is. And so God places within us, each one of us, love needs, and our parents are to prime the pump, to lay down a foundation for us to understand this God who is love, because we've experienced this from our parents. And so as we go through these love needs this evening, I want you to think about what you did or did not receive from your parents. By the way, it was mentioned that I am a counselor, and I want you to know, as we go down this list and as you think about your experience, I ask people when they talk, when they sit down and, hey, I want to come and talk with you, I ask them, tell me about growing up. And when I do, when people say, I had a perfect childhood, I go in my mind, check, that's a red flag. Why do I say that? I say that because there's no such person, no such thing as a perfect parent. Why? Because we are flawed, imperfect people. And as David and I will go through this talk tonight, we are pretty liberal about telling all our business. We don't have any shame because we're washed and sanctified and justified in Jesus. And so we don't mind telling our own experience. But as we go through these love needs now, again, I want you to think about your own. The first one is
affection and nurture. Affection and nurture. So how do parents show affection and nurture to their children? Hugging them? Yeah. Hugging them, feeding them. I mean, I want you to think for a moment. Think an infant that just is born, brand new baby, just gets born. They cut the umbilical cord. They clean the baby's eyes out and do all the, probably nurses know much better than I do what they do. And then what do? They bring that baby to who? To mother, and put the baby on where? Yeah, the mother's breast, right? And what does that baby start doing? Bonding, feeding and bonding, okay? And so what begins happening when that happens is attachments begin to be formed between the mother and that baby. Attachments that give a message, baby, I love you. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. It's been 9 months, finally you're here. I'm so happy, I'm so glad. And so that connection begins to be formed between the heart of that baby and the heart of that mother. And probably that connection already was there beforehand, okay? It was there beforehand. So this love need is really, really important. And do you want to say something about attachment more at this point?
Yeah,
or
just real quickly, I can talk about attachment. I feel so far away from you. I'm going to come down, except I know people like us up here sometimes. And as you can see, David does not heed that. He likes to be down there with you all as well. But attachment is really very important. It is, I guess, a simplistic way of saying it is the job of parents to teach a child how to live in the world, who they are and how to live in the world. They teach a child how to be social, how to respond to others, and how to self-soothe, how to take care of their own emotions. And so attachment is very, very important. That process begins, as David says, pretty early in life, and the child begins to develop and really pay attention to the mother's face and the mother's response, or the primary caregiver's response to them. And in that response to them, that child learns of their value and their worth. So attachment is very, very important.
So, honey, I want to ask you a question. When your mama was carrying you in the womb, what happened?
Well, she was not excited about being pregnant with me. My parents were married, and shortly after they were married, my dad began to be physically abusive, and my mother had, I had a brother, he's deceased now, who was a couple years older than me, and in fact, we shared the same birthday. And when she discovered that she was pregnant with me, she was really upset. She did not relish the idea that she was going to have two babies at 2 years apart. And she thought, well, if I could perhaps have a miscarriage, that would be great. And so there was a drug on the market called thalidomide that was used to help with nausea and vomiting in those first 3 months of pregnancy. And so it's been taken off the market because it was determined that it caused birth defects. But it was a very popular drug at that time. And so she took a bunch of it thinking it would help her to have a miscarriage, but she fortunately was unsuccessful. And she said it just really made her more nauseated. And when she woke up the next morning, she was happy that the nausea had passed from all the extra medicine she had taken, but the miscarriage didn't occur.
So do you think that babies in the womb have the capacity of sensing that kind of rejection? The Bible's clear about that. I mean, look at Luke chapter 1, 41, 44, about how John the Baptist responded to Jesus in the womb, and verse 44 says he jumped for joy. So babies in the womb can even experience feelings of joy or rejection. So I mean, we need to understand that. Can this affect a baby then into the future, a child, even when they grow up into adult, being an angry person or whatever? So I have a question for you. When someone hurts you, do you keep your heart open to them or close it? You close yours? It depends. Depends. So why do we close our hearts off to people? To protect us, right? To protect us. That's a really important thing. So we're talking here about attachment. Basic trust has been described as the capacity to hold yourself, your heart open to other people, even when they do make mistakes or hurt you. Basic trust. Okay? Now, protecting ourselves is a natural phenomenon, isn't it? But basic trust is a higher level of relationality, right? Because in marriages, are you going to hurt each other? Are you going to close your hearts off to each other? Many people do. Many people do. Because they've not had their basic love needs met. They've not been healed of some of those roots of bitterness that we talked about earlier. So when this love need is met, you develop basic trust, warmth, and spontaneity, and freedom of spirit, and it's the beginning of a solid sense of self, good differentiated self and secure attachment. But when this love need is not well met, and this, I want you to think about this. Do you know people who have a hard time trusting anyone? Yeah. Well, there are people who probably have not had their basic affection and nurture love need met, or coldness of heart, or performance orientation. You know what performance orientation is? It's people who have been taught from the time they're little that in order for you to be loved, you have to perform or do it perfectly or do everything just right. Okay? And so love is connected with performance, but is that the way it is with God? No. I mean, we're all going to make mistakes, right? I mean, I can remember in my own journey when God invited me to come off my pedestal of perfection and join the human race. Because I was taught as a kid I had to be perfect. And when I wasn't, I was shamed and, set aside and rejected. And it's like, that wasn't nice. So I internalized, I got to be perfect. But that's an impossibility. But how it manifested itself in my relationships is when Beverly would point out something that was not perfect about me, what would I do? I would get defensive. you're wrong. I'm perfect. You couldn't. I mean, I didn't consciously think that, but that's the way I acted. And how many of us get defensive when someone shares something about us that they see, even in love? So we need to look at that, okay? So poor differentiation, anxious attachment, insecure attachment, all of those come when this love need is not well met.
The next love need is affirmation. We all need to be affirmed. David just showed me an article today of things that children need from, boys need from their mothers, and they need to be told that it's okay to try things, number one, and that they have value and they're handsome. And so affirmation is very important. Just backstory real quick. I am the second child, as you already know, number 2 of 4. And when I was 3, I was molested by an uncle. And when I was 13, this young man told me I was the best thing since sliced bread, and he assured me there was a chance in a million that you cannot get pregnant the first time you have sex, and I believed him, and I proved that statistic wrong. I was that chance in a million. I did get pregnant at the young, tender age of 13 and a half. And had a baby boy, and I walked, I always knew that Saturday was the Sabbath, and someone sent me Voice of Prophecy lessons. Back in the day, you got kicked out of school when it was determined you were pregnant, and so I was kicked out of school, went home, and I was a great student. I loved school, really, really enjoyed reading, and there was a lady from the church who would come and bring junior guides to our home every month, and I would devour those. I just enjoyed reading those stories. But nobody could ever explain to me why we would go to church on Saturday. And so finally, when I was kicked out of school, this lady never took credit for sending me these Voice of Prophecy lessons. But when we got to the lesson on Sabbath, I knew that, oh, wow, there are people who go to church on Saturday. And so once I had Eric, I did go to church. And I remember just how I came into the church in the time period, a very legalistic time period. Some of you all may know what I'm talking about. And one of the real strong values that was touted was that you don't tell kids that they are good looking or beautiful because it might go to their heads. And so you don't really affirm your kids. Well, that is really the worst thing you could do. Affirmation is really, really very important. Kids need to know that their parents value them, and they really. I would tell Eric, I would like you even if you weren't my son. He was a good kid. We, needless to say, grew up together, and I always liked him. But David and I have a son together, and both our boys are very, very handsome. All our children are very good looking, in fact. And they heard it from me first. You are really fine. You are a good-looking young man. I'm really proud to be your mother. I'm so glad that God gave you to me. I would tell them those things, not even understanding the importance of it at that point, but I just really believe that because my experience was that no one ever said anything nice like that to me. When David and I, well, this is really what happened. David saw me and began hot pursuit of me. And that is my story, and I'm sticking to it. And
but it's true.
And so we went on one date, and I decided I was really busy, and I was in graduate school, and I was dating someone else, and I went out thinking I would make this guy jealous. That's another story for another day. But anyway, but David called me all the time, and one night he called me and he said, we were about to end the conversation, and he said, okay, PP, I'm going to let you go. Anybody know what a PP is? I didn't know what a PP was. And so I said, excuse me? I was like, what are you talking about? And I went immediately to the race card. What is this white man saying to me? Is he insulting me or what? I had no idea. But, you know, it didn't fit his character. And what he was saying to me was, you are a precious person. That's what he said. You're a precious person. And I stayed up all night, tossed and turned all night, because no one had ever called me precious. No one had even said anything like I delight in you or anything like that. And it was such a foreign concept to me. I thought, he is so nice. I thought he was smart. He thinks I'm precious. Something's wrong with him if he thinks I'm precious. All night long, I tossed and turned, trying to really fit this into something that I just had no frame of reference for. And now I'm a graceful gazelle, I'm a delicate doe, I'm a bronze beauty, I'm a leopard lily, and we've gone down the alphabet in saying that. And it's really been just a delightful thing. I look forward to hearing those things now. But it's really interesting, when you affirm people, people struggle with that. I am a poster child for sanguine. You know, if you want to know what a sanguine is, it's just follow me around. And I can walk up to somebody in the airport and say, you are really a fine man, I'm happily married, and walk away. I could say to a woman, you are such a beautiful woman, I'm married, I'm happily married, I'm fine, I just want you to know you are beautiful. You know, my favorite verses in scripture is chapters Isaiah 40 through 45, and nestled right in there is, since you were precious in my sight, I have loved you. And so God would say that to me, but I would skip over that. And we know now that for every positive message we receive 9 negative messages. And it takes 27 positive messages to counteract the negative messages we believe. So I make it my business to affirm someone every day. That's a value I hold. So if I haven't affirmed somebody, I'm in the airport, thank you so much for keeping the bathroom clean. Thank you so much for being diligent about keeping the place clean here. I really appreciate it. Or I'll say to a woman, you are really beautiful. And people have a hard time with that. You know, and this is what women will say, thank you. You know, they're like, oh, thank you. And you're beautiful too. And I say, I stop them. Nope. Today you're the beautiful one. The next time you see me in the airport, you can tell me I'm beautiful. But today you're the beautiful one, because people deflect. You know, it's like, wow, nobody's ever said it. And you can just see them wiggle when they see, I mean, just all kinds of things. Try it sometimes. Just say to somebody, you know, you're so beautiful, or I love your outfit, I love your glasses, or whatever it is. Remember, it takes so many positive messages to counteract the negative messages we believe. And if I can make a difference in someone's life by saying something positive, I want to do that. When that love need is met for us, what we learn is we have self-respect and dignity. We learn that we have personal value, and we learn it's okay to be who God made us. And when that love need is not met in our lives, we develop a shame core. And shame says, there's something wrong with me, I will never measure up. And shame is really about a bunch of lies we believe about ourselves. And when that love need is not met, we become very needy, or we reject our neediness. We develop what we call a victim expectancy. Victims say, poor me, ain't it awful? And they don't see themselves as having any kind of choice in life. And as a result of that, they live their lives expecting other people to make decisions for them, and they expect to be victimized. And if that love need is not met again, we become very judgmental and self-righteous. Because I don't feel good about myself, I'm going to build my own throne on polished poop and set my throne there and feel good about it and look down on you from my polished pile of poop. And so we become very judgmental and self-righteous.
The next love need is attention. Children need to be tended to. They need their parents to be involved in their lives and their activities, their schools and their sports or whatever it may happen to be. And so this kind of attention is so critical for children. There was a survey done not long ago where they asked fathers how much time they spent with their children. You know what the results was? An average daily result was 27 seconds. Not much. But you know, a lot of us say, well, you know, but it's quality time. But we need both quantity and quality of time. And so for children to really grow, you know, we need to actually be involved in their world so that they can see us and we can tend to their needs, because each child is different. Every child is different, and you're not going to know those differences if you're too busy, you know, working, you know, 16 hours a day and not there for your kids. And so it's really important that we not value material things over the people in our lives. So when we've been attended to well, we learn that it's okay to be a child, and it's okay to have desires, and I'm enjoyable to be with. But when we don't have this need for attention met well, sometimes we have difficulty with playing. You know, we're overly serious all the time, or sometimes we develop narcissism, which is, you know, a complete self-focus, you know, or just the opposite. We don't have any desires at all, you know. And, you know, one of the things I know for me is, you know, I was raised. I have 15 children in my family. I'm number 2 of 15, the oldest boy, and so. Farm family, we had a lot of hand-me-down clothes and all of that kind of stuff. So I was raised relatively poor, you know, and so, you know, even today, you know, Beverly says, well, honey, I'd like to buy you some new shoes or a new Oh, I don't need that. You know, I'm okay with what I have. You know, so, I mean, some of that, you know, comes from my childhood, and I recognize that, so.
Yes. Okay, the next love need is protection. Every child needs protection. And we do a great job, typically in terms of telling our children to look both ways before crossing the street, or we tell them don't don't go with strangers, stay by my side when we're in the store. We typically do a good job of that. But what about emotional protection? What about the sense of, you know, protecting them in terms of, you know, of helping them to grow and to be all that they can be, and during that time to provide a protection, a fence around them so that they can prosper and be all that God intended them to be. I always am concerned when I sit and, you know, we go to churches, and I love children. I'm always playing with children. I got such a charge last week out of playing with this little boy at the airport while I was waiting for my luggage. And I just enjoyed it so much. And, you know, it was just great. And so, great idea. But if he wanted to come over and give me a hug, if he wanted to, that's fine. But what if he didn't want to? You know how we would say, well, go over there and hug auntie or uncle, and maybe the kid does not want to, or smile. You need to smile. What if Johnny doesn't want to smile? There are times when you didn't want to smile, and you don't want to smile now, and that's okay. And so we need to allow our children the right to have their own perspective, their own views, their own, their own feelings. We need to teach them what feelings are and how to handle their anger, how to handle their sadness. And when they want to hug, they can. When they don't, they shouldn't be made to do so. We need to help them to learn to protect their own boundaries, so to speak, to learn how to have boundaries. And for so many people, that is often robbed of them because mom and dad have no problems, teaching them the exact opposite. Go hug somebody. How many of you all had parents with eyes in the back of their heads? we all could say, they could see around corners, they had eyes in the back of their heads, and for some reason, not understanding as children that it was because we weren't good liars, or, they could just see us and we were thinking we were hiding when the reality was that we were not. Now, put that mindset, that magical thinking that children possess into the context of the beginning or when there's active abuse going on. And for some reason, when abuse does happen, the lights go out in the children's eyes. And what happens when my mother can see around corners, but she can't see what's happening to me? And if the victimizer is very shrewd, he will, especially for systematic abuse, if you tell I'm going to harm you or your family. And so why didn't my mommy or my daddy see what was going on? I hear that all the time in a counseling setting. I don't understand why my mother didn't see, why my father didn't see. And that's really a very, very painful part of the journey of those of us who have gone through abuse and trying to process that because our parents failed to protect us. And when that love need is met, when we have been protected, we learn we have security, we have a sense of morality, we learn healthy personal boundaries, and we learn it's okay to talk about feelings. When that love need is not met, we have fears of all types. We have difficulty, conscience difficulties. We build walls instead of having boundaries. With boundaries, they can move in or out. I can move my boundaries closer to me, and I'm in a good mood, I can move my boundaries in. If I'm not, I'm going to put a boundary out. However, with walls, they're pretty static and nothing can come in or come out. Things go over the wall, but not come through the wall. And most of us have either poor boundaries, things can get through, and we have no way of protecting ourselves, and we struggle to say no when we want to say, yes when we want to say no. So those are all examples of poor boundaries, or we build walls, and we live by the don't talk rule, and we'll talk about that in a minute, what those rules are.
One aspect of protection is also establishing rules in the home by which the house lives by. But children, are they going to push those rules or not? They are, aren't they? And how we as parents handle that is really important to their future development, to their wholeness. So we have this thing called discipline. Now, is discipline different than punishment? Discipline comes from the root word disciple, right? And disciple means to what? To teach. And so punishment looks back at an offense and tries to deal with that thing that you did. Discipline looks forward to your future and says, how can I help my child learn not to do that, because that's not going to be helpful for him in the future. He's not going to function well as an adult. So I'm looking forward to his future, not trying to punish something he did from the past because he made me look bad or whatever those motivations are. So discipline is so important. And again, that's a 3-hour talk. But when you disciple your children well, and again, a part of discipling them is nurturing them in the fear and admonition of God, teaching them godly ways, and ultimately to internalize it for themselves so that when they grow up, they will have established their own values and make their own decisions for themselves that are healthy ones. So when we discipline our children well, we learn a balance of justice and mercy. Okay? We learn a sense of fairness and release from guilt, because we do carry guilt when we do wrong. But if discipline has not been done well, if it's done harshly or abusively, we develop bitterness, these roots of bitterness, rebelling against authority, or we might have lingering guilt.
The next love need is comfort. Now, again, comfort is not we'll pray for comfort for someone who's died, right? So if there's a death in the family or death in our church family, we'll say like, oh, may you be comforted. And we're all about comfort in terms of death. But in terms of other experiences in our lives, we have failed miserably at understanding. The Bible says that He is the God of all comfort, who wants to comfort our hearts. And comfort is needed in so many areas of our lives. I did not know to pray for comfort until I was in my 40s, that I could really ask God to comfort my heart. I'll tell you a funny story. I was struggling about a month ago with something. I didn't know what it was. I was just really, I was feeling some kind of way. I didn't know what I was feeling, and I was spending all this time and energy wrestling with trying to understand what I was feeling, and I couldn't figure it out. And so David was gone, and I woke up during the night, and I was kind of wrestling. What am I feeling? I don't even know. And I thought, you know what? I am tired of wrestling with what I'm feeling. I'm just gonna, Lord, would you? I hadn't even thought. Would you please comfort my heart? And before I could put the question mark on the question, I had this comfort, and it happened so quickly. I got scared. It was like, whoa. Wait. And it was like, wait a minute, here, God, take this back for a minute so I can see. And no, He indeed really did comfort my heart. And to this day, I don't know what was going on, but I know I received a lot of comfort, and I'm still comforted. But there are reasons for us to, there are reasons that we need comfort. Loss of a dream. I lost a pen. I had a very fancy pen, a Waterman pen. I loved that pen. I lost it. I grieved that pen. And I remember, Lord, please comfort my heart. I hate to lose things, and I pray for comfort. We have dreams, and the dreams don't go the way we think they should go. We've lost something. The dream has to die. We need comfort, and the Bible says He is the God of all comfort, and so we can't ask for comfort. And so I am happy to tell my brothers and sisters in the church that we don't have to wait till somebody dies. When your heart is aching, you can just ask God to comfort your heart, and He is more than willing and more than able, because the Word says He is the God of all comfort, and He comforts our hearts so we can comfort others. And so when that love need is met for us, when you think about a little child, there's nothing like a mother's kiss, right? You hurt yourself, you got a boo-boo, and you come in and your mother says, oh, I'm sorry, baby, Mom comforts us. Really, really important for parents to do, instead of suck it up, you don't have a reason to cry. How many of you all heard, you don't have a reason to cry, I'll give you a reason to cry? I heard that. I don't know about, I heard that. And so I'll give you a reason to cry, as opposed to just comforting us. And sometimes children just need comfort. And, things didn't go well at school. I'm so sorry, baby, things didn't go well at school, rather than a lecture. Well, did you do what you were supposed to do? All the things that some of us may have gotten. When that love need has been met, we develop the ability to forgive. We have the ministry of reconciliation. We learn to do that. And reconciliation, compassion, and empathy. And we have the ability to comfort others. And really very important, we learn it's okay to feel, because in my feelings, I am going to get comfort. And the reason why we tuck our feelings away so often, when we listen to people talk, and we do an awful lot of listening wherever we go, and as well as people we counsel, I put those things away. I'm not going to deal with it now. And the reason why is because we don't know that He is the God of all comfort, because our parents have not comforted our hearts as well. So it's okay for us to feel, because we've had that. When we don't have that, we have difficulty with forgiveness. We have blocked feelings. We have difficulty comprehending the cross, and we lack compassion.
How many of you, when you were teenagers, and you really blew it, it's a big one, could come to your parents and tell them all about it. And know that they wouldn't scold you or lecture you or beat you up or any of that kind of thing. I mean, for a lot of us, we dreaded going to mom and dad because we knew we were going to get it, But, when we make mistakes, and all of us do because we're human, we need guidance to help us through those times of mistake and the consequences that come with them. Okay? So we need that kind of guidance. And so when we get that kind of guidance, we develop an appreciation for the experience of adulthood and respect for our parents and elders, and we have a clearer sense of direction in our lives. But when we don't get that love need met, we have difficulty learning to reason from cause to effect, and often we become self-dependent because we learned we couldn't depend on them for guidance, or we become indecisive. So these are the love needs, and a quick overview of these love needs. So what I want to ask you now, in our family, we have this perfect thing now. All of these qualities are in your marriage, and you have your children. And what happens when addiction enters into the picture? Now, when I'm talking about addiction, I'm not just talking about alcohol and drugs. Those are the things we kind of classically think, but about sex addiction, relationship addiction, religion addiction. You can be addicted to anything, okay? And if the truth be told, again, we're not here to talk about that, but we're all addicted to something, every single one of us, if we really saw that for what it is. But when addiction comes in, if you think about classic addiction, where's the focus of the addict? On himself and on the addiction, right? And what happens then to what the wife was getting? What happens to things like being a good money manager and being available and being loyal and all of those qualities that, because the first lover of an addict is what? The addiction, whatever that addiction is. Their focus is there. So his focus is there. Let's assume it's the husband. It could be the wife or both of them, actually. But let's say the spouse. How does she respond when she finds a husband being drawn away to the addiction? Hurt. What else? Loses trust. Yeah. And so what she's going to try to do, because most of the time what families want to do is maintain the homeostasis of the family, kind of keep it functioning okay. So what she's going to try to do is either win him back somehow, or she's going to make it look like the family's still together, still healthy even when they're not. And so her focus is going to be on trying to manage or control the addiction. Okay? So if his focus is on the addiction and her focus is on trying to manage the addiction too, manage her husband, what happens to the kids? What happens to their love needs? They don't get well met, do they? Okay? So can these kids then, can they go to mom and dad, and tell them all about what they're feeling? What do you think they're feeling? Name some things. They're feeling trapped. What else? Left out. Confused. What else? Adjective. Despair. Abandoned. Insignificant. Alone. Very good. Very good. I mean, they have all these feelings. Betrayed, lonely, all of these things that are there. I mean, this is a really, really good list. And there are many other feelings that they have too. But can they go to mom and dad and say, Mom, I'm feeling rejected by you right now? What would happen if they did in an addict family? It wouldn't go well, would it? It wouldn't go well. So what do they do with all these feelings that they have? They bottle them up. We use the analogy of a garbage can. And there's a reason we use that. So what happens to garbage here in the middle of summer? It starts stinking, rotting, putrefying. And honestly, that's what happens inside of our hearts. there's this toxicity that occurs, deep within our hearts when we have to lock all of our feelings up and we can't share them. And I just want to share this real briefly. There was a study that was done called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study. Have any of you ever heard of it? It's a story. There were 10 adverse childhood experiences that were researched, where they asked over 17,000 people if they had any of these things, like child abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, divorce in the family, addiction in the family. They listed 10 adverse childhood experiences. Then what they did is they went into their medical records and discovered that people who had one or more of these adverse childhood experiences had significantly worse chronic illnesses, mental illnesses, and behavioral problems like overeating and substance abuse and all of that kind of stuff. So one of the things that I want to share about this is they said that if you share your story of hurt and pain, take the lid off the garbage can for just half an hour with a safe person, there's going to be a year's worth of benefit in reduction in those symptoms, chronic illnesses, mental illnesses. So isn't that why it's important to create a safe church? Should not this church be a safe place for people to come and to share and find healing? Okay? And that's one of our passions. So the garbage can represents your heart. But there are some dysfunctional rules too.
Yes, I want to just spend a few moments just talking about dysfunctional rules that exist. And the dysfunctional rules are: don't talk, don't feel, don't trust, be perfect. Okay, so we're not going to talk about our problems, and sometimes that's clearly articulated. Let's not talk about them, and other times it's just said non-verbally. We're just not going to talk about our problems. We're just not going to talk about things that really matter. And we go on as though everything is okay when things are not okay. Don't talk, don't feel. And again, all these rules happen in the church as well, because the church is just really one big family, a microcosm of our family, the family. And then we come here and voila, you bring all of that stuff here. Don't talk, don't feel that way, honey. Just pray for your husband. Don't feel that way. I do feel that way. I do feel that way. I do feel this way. And I always say feelings are not up for negotiation. They just are. I don't have to run my life by my feelings, but it is important for me to acknowledge my feelings. We're told in inspired writings that our character is made up of thoughts and feelings. So there is a balance that's needed, that we have thoughts as well as feelings. It's not just thoughts, but we also have feelings, and they need to be in balance. Don't talk, don't feel, don't trust. You can't trust people, and we certainly can't trust other people. I'm always concerned when I hear that people say, well, we're just a family unit and we don't have any outside friends. It's just our family. We do everything together. That sounds good, but the reality is when you have a closed system, it's not, the system is really unhealthy. And so you need other people, other interactions with people. And so we just did a marriage retreat a couple of weeks ago in Atlanta, or outside of Atlanta, and I mentioned that when I have a community, two ladies that I'm really close to, and they are my community. I don't depend upon David to be my all in all. It's unrealistic. David needs friends, I need friends. And a couple of women said, you mean my husband is my best friend? David is my best friend, but he's not my only friend. And so you need other friends, but this idea, don't talk, don't feel, don't trust other people. It's only you and me against the world. That is not how God intended. In fact, when you look at I didn't come to preach tonight, maybe tomorrow, but not tonight. When you look at the idea of community, God wanted community. He wanted us to be a part of community. And you could take the state of the dead, that beautiful doctrine, the state of the dead, and really drive home the point about community. You know, the reason why we're not going to heaven individually, is because we're going as a community. God values community. And so we have to learn how to live in community. And even our resurrection experience will be a community experience. And so God wants us to have community. And yes, there are some things that certainly we need to respect in terms of the sacred circle, but we need other people, and we need to know how to trust other people. And then I do this drawing right quick. I'm going to just say this because you know I can talk all night. But anyway, I do this drawing when I'm talking to people who don't have a lot of friends. And, you know, we don't trust because the world is not safe. Our primary caregivers have not taught us to learn to know how to do that. And we don't trust, and then it gets really lonely. And then we find somebody to trust who is not trustworthy. And then they demonstrate why we're over here in the first place, and then we swing back over here. And what happens is we blow past all the red flags to get over here in the first place, when the reality is you do that swing, there is a balance here. But it doesn't happen if we're always living our life in don't trust. And another very important dysfunctional rule to describe is be perfect, to be perfect little adults. Kids are not little adults. They are little children. They're supposed to play. They're supposed to be silly. They're supposed to have fun. They're supposed to be goofy. And, you know, I've heard stories where my mother could just control me with a look. You know, you get a look and you get home and you got that look. Well, you know, again, don't leave here thinking I'm not into discipline. I'm not talking about that. I am talking about children being free to be little children and not little adults. But in dysfunctional homes, it is about, I need you to be perfect little adults as opposed to little children. Did you notice the title of our message is The Cycle of Dysfunction? And this is what we bring into our relationships. We have this heart that we have put in the garbage can, all these feelings, all these pains and all these wounds, and we come and we have these rules that we live by. And by the way, you know our character is set the first 7 years of life, right? We learn how to do relationships the first 7 years of life. And so, you know that saying, everything you learn in kindergarten? You ever heard that saying, everything I learned in kindergarten? Well, that's really true. In essence, that all the things that we learn pretty young, and we grow up and we have perfected it. There are some things that
we do to survive.
Yeah.
And so this is important to understand, that God intended us to thrive, but many of us have settled for just surviving. And I like to use the analogy of, like, I love to plant roses. I have a rose garden in my backyard. But think about a rose in the springtime that grows into a beautiful bud, but it never opens and blossoms into this flower. That's what it's like for those of us who are just survivors. We never fully open up and see, give this beautiful scent of our lives off to the world. And so we develop these survival mechanisms in these dysfunctional families. And one of them is, again, we've mentioned several, so I'm just going to quickly list them, but things like being in control. When we lived a chaotic life that was so out of control, we think we need to manage our lives and manage other people's lives to keep us safe. Performance-oriented to earn love. Okay? Depending on ourselves because we couldn't depend on adult figures in our lives. So we just depend upon ourselves. Beverly mentioned the victim expectancy. Another one is fight or flight. In relationships, when things happen, we either run, withdraw, or else we're the fighters. We're going to make sure that our point gets across. So we don't have this balance of being good at conflict resolution or even good at communication, because we either withdraw or we fight. Or, addictions are what? A source of comfort. Most people who are addicts are either trying to comfort pain or make themselves feel better. That's the essence of it. So we need to look at that. So there are many, many other survival roles and mechanisms that we have. But I want to ask you this question. What message do our survival mechanisms give God? That we don't trust Him? Is it true that if we've learned not to trust the parents that God has given us, that we tend to transpose that onto God? We do. We do. We tend to kind of have this relationship with God where, and who's our God then if we really are in control ourselves? Who's our God? Functionally, I am. That's the way I'm acting, right?
And let me say this too, and this is really very important. And can you close the circle on that? This is really very, I've done this twice this week. I was talking to two people, two individuals about, and two women in fact, and they were telling me about their struggle to stay in church. And one lady left and came back, and she's left and came back, and she's thinking of leaving again, but God keeps drawing her back, and she's just like, I don't know what God is doing. And this other gal just texted me yesterday and was saying, she's thinking about leaving. And I learned this anecdotally several years ago now, 20 plus years ago. And I just want to share this because it seems to be a theme now. And it's this, our issues with God, our fathers get played out with God. I can speak for that myself. I didn't trust God to provide financially because my father didn't provide financially well for me. So I really expected God to do me like my father did. And I really had to see how, come to terms with my view of God. My view of dad was transposed onto God. But something the Lord showed me about 20 years ago, my struggles with my mother get played out through the church. And so I was talking to this lady last week. I was in Florida last weekend, and she was telling me about, this is the one that was back and forth. And I said, tell me about growing up. Tell me about your mama. And she said, well, I don't know why that's important, why you asked that question. I said, well, just tell me about it. And everything she described about her mother, she had just described about the church. And I pointed that out to her. And she said, oh my word, I've never seen that before. And she said, it's so true. That's exactly, I feel the same way about the church as I do about my mother. And I don't care how many Bible studies you give people. I don't care how hard you try to talk people back in church. If they got mama issues being played out through the church, they got to address those first before they will ever darken the door again of a church. And then one more piece of vital information I love to share in this. First, there are 4 tasks in a family, and this is all found in the book, so I'm going to do it real quick. And so if you want more information, you got to get the book. The first task is provision, and that's the responsibility of the father. And the firstborn in the family, regardless of sex, will identify with that responsibility, that role, especially if dad has dropped the ball, which means the firstborn child, will take on and identify with the father, and that could be, they'll have a very close relationship or they're fighting. The second task in the family is that of being concerned about the emotional relationship, okay? The emotional component of the family. And that is typically the mother. And the secondborn, regardless of gender, will take on, if the mother has done a good job or has done a poor job, will have a relationship with the mother. And again, that relationship can be very close or they're fighting. The third task is that of the relationship between, in the marriage dynamic. So whatever's going on in the marriage, the third-born child will take on, identify, and carry the feelings, the unspoken things in relation to the marriage. And that third-born will either want to be married or they'll run the other way. The fourth-born will be concerned about the entire family dynamics. And the fourth-born child, the fourth-born task, and the fourth-born child will be the ones who will be the one to rally the family together, will be the one that keeps the, if one sibling's not talking, they'll be the one to kind of try to talk to the other sibling, and they'll be the one to try to gather everybody together. That's the fourth-born, or I don't want to have anything to do with the family. That's the fourth-born. And then the pattern repeats itself. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I love when I first learned this, and I went to David's family and I saw it in action. David is mentioned, he's the number 2 child, and he has been very much like his mother. And it's interesting because the children, the siblings in the position he is in, so that's 2, 6, and 10, they have a special bond. And because they're doing the same thing, they're carrying the same stuff. And so they have a special bond, and they love David. He's the number 2, and they love David. And the same, likewise, 3, if you look in the birth order, and the 1, 5 who's like Daddy, boy, they're always fighting. Daddy was a controller in the family, and the children in those positions in David's family, they're all controllers, and they usually are fighting because they're all controllers. And they don't like each other. And, they love each other, but they don't like each other. And it's so fascinating. And so I always like to share that. You see, there's so much more to the human condition than just like I see you and, I'm looking at your behavior and I want to critique your behavior. There's so much more that motivates us that we're not even understanding. And God wants to get to the root, to the heart of the matter, to the heart of the things that drive us that we may not even be aware of. And so as we are about to wind down here, David's going to close by talking about how the cycle repeats itself.
So a person with this picture, this kind of family, when they get of age and they start looking for a relationship, what are they going to bring into this relationship? Okay? They're going to bring their garbage can into the relationship. They're going to bring their structures of self into the relationship. They're going to bring their unresolved love needs. They're going to bring all of that into the relationship with them. And it's, again, some of it's genetic in addictions, we know that, but a lot of it's just nurture. It's what we learned. That's what we bring into relationships. And so I'm going to be attracted, research shows, to someone about the same level of emotional health as I am. However I came out of the family, and whatever level of maturity or brokenness that I had when I came out of the family, if I've not addressed it and dealt with it, I'm going to be attracted to someone just as dysfunctional and unhappy as I am, or just as healthy as I am, depending on how it was. And that's how the iniquity of the parents gets visited upon the children to the 3rd and 4th generation. Does that make sense? Any questions? Any questions or comments in the last few minutes that we have? Yes, sir. Is there hope?
Yes.
I'm glad you asked that question. Yes, there's absolutely hope, and some of that is what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. But we can change, we can grow, but we don't grow by continuing to decide to hide, to not be open and vulnerable. We have to find safe places with safe people that we can begin sharing and growing and learning that we're not alone. We're not the only one with those struggles. Okay? And, one of the things, I don't know, do you guys know that our Seventh-day Adventist Church has a thing called Adventist Recovery Ministries? A Christ-centered 12-step program? Do you have one of those right here in the church? Do you have a 12-step group? A Christ-centered 12-step group? The church has those available. Okay? I go around the world training people how to do, addiction recovery groups or emotional healing groups using our materials. There are many churches who have small emotional healing groups using our book and workbook. I mean, those are intentional, safe places that we create in order to heal, in order to grow, in order to get healthy.
And the other piece I would add is, and again, we're kind of rushing doing this real quick. We spend time talking about the love needs because we think that's really important. But we usually do this in 2-3 hours. So, but the idea is that the cross is the remedy. And Jesus wants to come and deal with our hearts. He's not interested in our heads. He's not interested in our head knowledge. He's interested in our hearts. And this is really the true condition of our hearts. A lot of us have a lot of anger issues. A lot of us we live in denial. We don't understand how broken we really are. There's no crime in being broken. I have no shame in being broken. The problem is that I won't admit it. That's the Laodicean message. And Lord, if you don't heal me, this is all I have to give you. The message, the tools we use to survive life are not the tools that will help us to thrive in life. And so I have to recognize that, man, I don't trust people, Lord. And so how can I trust you who I don't see? How can I trust you when I don't trust people I see? And how is it that I see relationships as expendable? I can cut a person off. They hurt me, I'm going to cut them off. I'm just going to do that. I'm not going to just talk to them. I'm going to sit on the other side of the church. Anybody know what I'm talking about here? I'm going to sit on the other side of the church, or I'm going to change Sabbath school, or I might even leave the church and go to another church because that church was just too messed up. The reality is we all messed up, and there are no expendable relationships. Some packages, I like to frame it this way, some of the ugliest gift wrap packages are the ones that are the most wonderful for me. God has wrapped them up in people who get on my nerves so I can see myself. Because the people who get on your nerves are the people you most like. Yeah? Yeah, okay, come back tomorrow. We'll finish unpacking that.
All right, thank you so much.
Let's bow our heads for prayer. Father, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to continue to learn about the different things that we bring into marriage and how that affects not just us personally, but how it affects our marriages, how it affects our families, and how it affects us just in general in our lives. Father, I pray that for those who are already married, that this would hit them, and this would convict them, and this would help them to realize that this is not something we just blow off or just kind of bury, but this is something that we need to address and consider in the context of marriage in our lives with each other. But also, Lord, for many here, perhaps some who have never been married, perhaps some who have been married and are divorced, there's something in this message of what we have encountered, something that we have been perhaps abused or hurt in our childhood. Lord, whatever it is that we're carrying, we want to lay it down at your feet. We want to claim that promise in 1 Peter 5:7 that says we can cast all of our burdens on you because we know you care for us. So, Father, thank you for that promise. And we pray that you continue to bless us this weekend. In the name of Jesus, amen. Thank you. God bless.